I'm Fabia and I work as one of the account handlers in the care and social welfare team at McClarrons. McClarrons are an independent insurance broker with over 30 years experience in the insurance industry. We started as a family business based in Malton, North Yorkshire, but we've grown to offer insurance expertise nationwide. We're specialists in farm, care, commercial, personal and high net worth insurance. For the last few years, we've been working closely with social farms and gardens to develop insurance packages that suit their individual members' needs. These packages cover 3 members types: community gardens, city farms and care farms, and are tailored to the individual organisation's requirements. We currently have over 120 members on cover and are always available to answer any questions, provide insurance cover reviews and quotations. We know that this summer, social farms and garden members are looking to host a variety of programmes and events open to the public. Whether that's Have a Grow Day on the 5th of June, summer activity programmes for children or other community and volunteer activities that have been on hold since March 2020, such as planting, harvesting, feeding animals, basic DIY activities, or workshops including cookery, beekeeping and crafts. Whatever event you're planning, it's important that you have the right insurance in place. As Social Farms and Gardens insurance partners, we've been asked to offer some advice to ensure that the events you run are safe for everyone involved, and should the worst happen, you're covered for any claims. The first thing we would recommend is getting on the phone to your insurance provider to check that the activities you're planning are covered. Firstly, we'd suggest looking at your public liability cover. This is the insurance that covers injuries caused by accidents, such as slips, trips and falls. You need to make sure that you have the appropriate level of cover. Our policy coverage would start at 5 million, but if you were considering running something on council property, such as litter picking event or street planting, local councils often require a 10 million limit. So, check your current level and increase it if necessary. Secondly, events cover. Find out from your insurer or broker whether this is included on your current policy. If it is, check the limit on the amount of people or the types of events you can run. On our policy, we would cover up to 500 people at any one time. However, we would not cover hazardous activities like bouncy castles. This doesn't mean you can't have one on your site. It just means that your insurer may wish to charge an additional premium to add the cover, subject to them being satisfied the appropriate risk management is in place. If the bouncy castle is provided and run by a third party, for example, you need to also make sure that they have their own insurance policy in place. Thirdly, high-risk liability. Given the current situation, it's perhaps more likely that other groups may approach you to use the space over the summer. It may be on your policy that you're covered to lease your space out for organisations to run their own activities in your space. It's worth reading the policy schedule and wording to see if there are any activities excluded from this, and see whether your high-risk liability would cover you or not. This is really important to consider and would usually fall under your employer's liability. Employer's liability extends to volunteers operating in an employee capacity and should be included on your insurance policy. You need to make sure that if you're running an event, the employees or volunteers are covered, and there are several elements to consider here. Firstly, if it's a new activity, have you put the correct training and risk assessments in place? Secondly, if you're working with vulnerable adults or children, are your volunteers or staff DBS checked? And thirdly, is there any one-to-one support taking place? If so, it may be worth highlighting this to your insurers and ensuring that you have a lone workers policy in place to safeguard both the employee or volunteer and the visitor. If you're planning on expanding your activities, make sure you contact your insurance provider to see if the activities you're planning to run would be covered under the policy. Our policies cover a wide range of activities, but contain specific risks that the insurers would not cover, such as riding on horses or blacksmith work with heat. Check your policy schedule and wording to see the list of activities that are and are not covered under the policy. If you have any doubts, contact your insurer or broker directly. It's always safer to ask than to presume. This would usually fall under your public liability, which would cover you for accidents that may occur on the site. As mentioned previously, it's very important the activities you're running are covered under your insurance policy. Once you know that the activity is covered, make sure you have the right risk assessments in place to ensure that your client is kept safe during their visit. This includes elements like assessing the individual's ability and suitability for an activity and modifying it accordingly. The insurers may also want to see a copy of risk assessments before advising whether the activity would be covered. There's also an element of risk management. Risk management with insurers is twofold. Firstly, it's about reducing the likelihood of an incident occurring, but it's also about being able to repudiate an unfair claim. Ensuring you have the risk assessments in place and appropriate training means that if a claim does arise, your insurer is in a much better position to defend the claim. Insurers would expect you to have the same level of risk assessments, safeguarding and risk mitigations as for all your standard activities. This includes a safeguarding policy. It may be that you're opening up your space to vulnerable people. It is therefore worth reviewing your safeguarding policy to ensure that it meets all your new visitors' needs and making sure that everyone understands and is following your policy. Risk assessments. All activities need to be fully risk assessed. Depending on your visitors, you may need to carry out individual risk assessments for each activity to ensure that the activity is suitable for the visitor's ability. It's hugely important that you follow government guidelines when it comes to COVID. After over a year of changing regulations, we know that most of you will have adapted frequently to ensure you are within these guidelines. Many insurers have limited their exposure to communicable disease claims, and each policy wording is different, but we would suggest that you check both business interruption and public liability sections to understand exactly what cover you have in place. Our packages, importantly, do not exclude communicable disease from public liability, meaning if a member of public contracted COVID-19 and alleged it was contracted at your event due to a lack of risk management, the policy would still react. It's fantastic to see so many organisations eager to get more individuals involved and plan for a bright summer of activities. We hope this has gone some way to reducing your concerns and answering your questions. However, at McClarrons, we're always happy to offer you advice about your insurance, so please feel free to get in touch with any questions.